Welcome to my fleet of aging V8 Euromobiles that I have somehow managed to accumulate as I reach geezerdom after a lifetime of fun small displacement cars, MGB, GTI, Scirocco, CRX, Alpha GTV, 240 SXs. What have I ended up with? 3 Germans and a Brit, all with V8 power. This is a 1990 Mercedes 500 SL, as you can see. Early North American car, April 1990. It's the most needy. I picked it up last fall for $2,000, and it's taken 3 times that much to get to this point, and still needs more to come. Moving on, another German. It's an 86 Porsche 928 S3. This is actually a Japanese market car, a slick top, no letterbox sunroof on this. It's in good shape with British Columbia collector plates. And we move over to a 2003 BMW 540i Sport manual. One of only 25 cars in North America for 2003 that came with a manual that were not the M Sports. This is just what I call a Sport, and it's the daily driver of the bunch. About 153,000 kilometers. And then the Brit in the group is a 2002 Jag Xk8. Again, it's about the same kilometers, approximately 152,000. Mercedes is a little different. It's got over 400,000 kilometers. And the Porsche is the baby of the group. It's only got 102,000 kilometers, approximately 64,000 miles. So why do I have a bunch of cars that are sort of the same ilk? I'm not sure I can answer that, but I have them, and they all are the same, but they are all a little different as well. So we'll take a look, starting with the oldest. We'll check out the Porsche here. Basically stock Japanese market car, came into Canada about 13 or 14 years ago. I bought it in 2016. Relatively cheaply, 4,500 Canadian. It looked just as you see it, but mechanically the home mechanic owner decided to do some work on it, and he messed up some of the engine. He had the plugs going to the wrong pistons and various other things. It wasn't running very well. So I had a bit of work to do. I don't do the work, but I found the mechanic that actually certified this car when it came into Canada. He's in North Vancouver, and he went through everything, Obviously did the timing belt and the water pump, and fixed a few things. New tires. The tires were in really rough shape. On and on. Anyway, it's been in my fleet for 5 years now, and it's a great car. It's probably the most basic of the four cars. Not too many bells and whistles. It's not the most comfortable. It's not the fastest, but it's very solid, and it probably draws the most attention of the four. Although the Jag, a lot of people think the Jag is very pretty, but the 928 is a love it or hate it. A lot of people don't know what it is. Some people ask, is this the new Porsche? I've never seen one before. And they don't really believe it when you tell them that it's 35 years old. But that's what it is. The next oldest car, the Mercedes, it's obviously a project car. Needed to get back into a convertible. Had a Miata, very nice NB 2002 6-speed Miata, but I didn't fit so well, and it was pretty buzzy at highway speeds, you know, turning about 4,000 revs. I also had a Mercedes 280 coupe, which was a lovely car in great condition, but it just lacked the performance. It was a North American version. It was an 81 detuned down to 140 horsepower, and just didn't have the power that the Euro version had, or that I was sort of looking for. I had it for years, got a good price when I sold it, and then this thing popped up and became a COVID project to save it. It's be ongoing, and I'm certainly going to be spending more money than it's worth, but such is life. We didn't go anywhere this winter, so all that money is going into getting the Mercedes back up and running. The Jag, I just always liked this design. It harkens back to the E-types that were around when I was a teen, and I've always looked seriously at an XJS, but when this one came along, I said, yeah, give it a try. So it's 2002, thankfully built just after the timing chain tensioners were converted over to metallic instead of plastic. So it's been a good car. It's easy to drive, very light controls. Maybe over boosted. The steering, the brakes, everything seems very light in it, especially compared with the Teutonic, Germanic Mercedes and Porsche. But it's a lot of fun. Great highway car. And then the BMW, probably the best car of the bunch. Probably the fastest, the quickest, the roomiest. It's an interesting spec with the manual transmission, M suspension and brakes. M seats, but not the full M Sport that was so sought after in 2003. This is much rarer, but it doesn't have the 18-inch M parallel wheels and a few of the other features. That said, it's a great daily driver. I had to do the clutch shortly after I acquired it, but that's really been the only maintenance so far. And it's a great car. Sort of nondescript, sleeper, but I'm hoping to keep it long enough that it'll qualify for collector plates in British Columbia. It has to be 25 years old. So it and the Jag hopefully will still be around when they qualify. 540 has the best combination of performance and luxury and comfort. It's a fast enough car in today's world. It can go all day long, returns mid to high 20s at 120 kilometers an hour. And it's just a great car for all the possible BMW problems. I haven't had much to worry about. The engine is a 4.4 liter V8. Puts out 290 horsepower and 324 pound-feet of torque. So it can get the job done. And with the 6-speed, it's a pleasure to drive. The 928's an automatic 4-speed Mercedes gearbox. It's smooth. It runs out of revs. It would really be nice to have the 5-speed that the S4 version had, but it's basically been a great car. I just keep the useless little back seats folded down, and it's surprising how much cargo you can get in a hatchback with the seats folded down. I have an aftermarket Momo steering wheel. I've got the original, but it needs to be refinished. A lot of people think the 86 or the 86 and a half, which this is, even though it's not a North American car, is the best of the original body style 928s. This has the 5-liter car. It has the least horsepower of all of these, only by a couple. It's 288 horsepower, and it still does the job. It's also the lightest of the 4 cars. You can see that the long nose and hood, the engine sits way back behind the front wheels, so it's a front mid-engine car, and it does the job. The 928 feels heavy at low speeds. It's solid, firm, but the controls are heavy. It gets better and better as the speeds go up and up and up. But by today's standards, it's not really a fast car, although at the time, this had probably more horsepower than virtually any other car for sale. It had more power than the equivalent Ferraris and Mercedes and Corvettes and Camaros, they all, were lacking back in the 80s. Horsepower was sadly lacking, and this was considered one of the fastest and one of the most powerful cars that you could buy in the early and mid 80s. The XK8 is a nice performing car. It's a highway cruiser. It has the old English feel to it with all the lacquered wood on the dash, which incidentally is a little disconcerting. It's so shiny, so glossy that when you're driving along, it reflects trees and other things, buildings, that sort of distracts your eye a little bit. The seats let this down as being a sporting car. They're not heavily bolstered, not a lot of thigh support, at least from my point of view. It's got an automatic gearbox. You can manually shift, but it's basically what they call a J box, and best left in automatic. The year after this, in 2003, they changed up to a 6-speed box. This is a 5, and they also increased the displacement of the engine. This is a 4-liter V8. They went up to 4.2 the next year, but it does the job. The car was not designed to be a race car, and I don't really see the point in the XKR that has the supercharger and the extra 30% or so power. This engine has 290 horsepower and also 290 pounds-feet of torque. It's 3,500 pounds, so just slightly heavier than the 928, considerably lighter than the Mercedes, a couple of 100 pounds lighter than the BMW. Smooth engine, fairly easy to maintain. As I say, this particular year and build date allowed a little more reliability with the fact that it had the metallic timing chain tensioners on it. But it's very stock 17-inch wheels, but a pretty car. And it's a little claustrophobic inside. The greenhouse is small and you can't see out the back. It has beep sensors to tell you when you're going to back into something. But it's a great highway car and easy to drive. I felt this old Mercedes deserved to be saved. I'm not a mechanic, so I couldn't do it myself, but I've got a guy that in town here that I trust with my cars, and I source some of the parts. He sourced some of the parts that it needed. He troubleshoot things. I've been on the forums for a long time trying to figure things out, but it had ignition problems, it's had fuel problems. Cosmetically, it's a lot better than it was, but it still needs more love. I've done the brakes, I've done the drive shaft guibos, donuts. I still need to do the front struts, but anyway, it's a powerful car. It's a 5-liter. The most powerful as far as horsepower, it's 322 horsepower. You know, it has to pull around 4,100 pounds of car because this thing is built so heavily. It's like a tank. It has the same gearbox as the 928, basically. Porsche sourced their automatic boxes from Mercedes back in the day. It's in good shape as far as exterior cosmetics. You can't complain when a car's gone 400,000 kilometers and still has a shine to it, and you know, there's no corrosion showing. Underneath it looks solid. It just was very tired and neglected for a while. The hard top is in good shape, except the headliner needs to be done. So the project is ongoing. I don't know how much effort I'll put into it, but certainly for the summer with the top down, and the soft top actually works, which is a nice thing on these cars, because it's a pain when they're not operating correctly. It's expensive and frustrating. Anyway, that's the V8 fleet for now. I do have another V8, but it doesn't really count in this company. It's a Ford F350 diesel dually that we use to carry the camper and to tow the boat. So it's not part of this deal here. But anyway, for some reason, an old geezer who always had small engine cars now has too many, maybe, of old V8s.